So, conventional wisdom, so there's two truths. Conventional wisdom is like a cause and effect. So before when I was here I talked about lying. So what happens when we tell a lie? Do you remember I talked about that a little bit? If we tell a lie, what happens to us? The first thing is we stop trusting others. You know why? Because we think they're lying to us. And the third thing that happens is, what happens when we hear the truth? We think it's a lie. This is how cause and effect works for everything we do. With our body, speech, and mind, the positive actions create positive events. The negative actions, there are 10 negative actions. They create negative events. And the opposite of those 10, one of the negative actions of speech is lying. And you can see, no trusting others. Next thing, we start to think that our friends are lying if we don't trust them, if we told them a lie. And the third thing, if they tell us the truth, we won't believe them. So right away, that has destroyed our universe. It's now, we don't trust anybody, we have no friends, and we don't even recognize the truth. So that's one of the conventional truths, is that by this action, it produces this action. So the negative actions produce negative events, the positive actions produce positive events. So that's just an example, okay? Did you have any other questions before we do the dedication?
What are the truths? So you only mentioned.
Truth, I talked about no phenomena has totally, nothing is totally independent existence. Like the house depends on the walls, the ceilings, the two befores, the floor. Even our body, there are many parts. There's the stomach, there's eyes, there's ears. There's 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, consciousness, volitional actions go to make up a human being. Though each one of those breaks down more and more. So if we start examining who we are, we can't find anybody, ultimately. Even the I, this thing we call me, is based on our conditions from our childhood, our family, our environment, our work, our home, our city. All those, when we say I, all these things come together to make an I. But if we start to look for the I, we can't find it. We just find pieces. Well, which one's me? Well, there isn't a me. The me is just fabricated. It's like we're running a drama. It's like one of those things, a soap opera. We've fabricated an I. So it actually believes it exists. Like the house looks like it's here. And the I can't stand, but it can't stand up to examination. So when you start to examine it, suddenly the I starts to go away. Then you know what happens? You start to experience bliss. Because the nature of the mind, without the fabrications, is one of bliss. The bare nature of the mind. Everybody has it. But since we fabricated an I, we're looking out there for it. In somebody's body, the possessions, or some event out there. You know, because of how we fabricated an I. Everybody does this. We all do it, okay? Now, but once we see into that, and we begin dissecting it, and removing the things we call I, like deconditioning ourselves and examining that, who we really are, then as we get deeper into it, we start to go into a state of bliss. We start to actually experience the nature of the mind, which is one of bliss. Ultimately, it's luminous bliss. So this is, but we've gotten away from that because we lived out of conceptions. We've like fabricated a world of thought. Once the thoughts go, then we start, but then we go into nirvana. This is bliss. That's what nirvana is. It's not some faraway place. It's just a state of bliss. That's not Buddhahood. That's just nirvana. Now Buddhahood is 10 more layers above that, 10 bodhisattva levels. So bodhisattvas forsake their own happiness and work solely for the welfare of others. They don't work for themselves. Their sole existence is to transform other beings and bring them ultimate happiness. Not just worldly happiness. If necessary, temporarily bring them worldly happiness. But if I give you a new car, it's going to wear out. So that may not be the best thing to help you with. It might be better to talk to you about desire. You follow me? But you got to have a car too, because this is the world we live in now, you know. But if it obscures our mind, then we can't see things as they are, and then suffering comes. So this is a one manner of investigating the mind. Everything starts in the mind. It's the basis for everything. And in Buddhism, mind is here, in the center of our chest. This is where mind is located. This is the motivator of our actions. It's the source of our actions here. This isn't the source. This is the source here. So this, yes.
In martial arts, they call that chi.
Chi.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my, like life force I'm imagining as chi.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. But I think that the little difference is there's a motivation. There's somebody that there's a motivation here. Like the motivation for this practice is other living beings. You know, so chi is energy. So this is like, there was a word called here bodhicitta. There was a word here, we called it bodhicitta.
Yeah,
Bodhi is awakened, and citta is mind. It's awakened mind. That everybody out there is seeking things that are going to bring them suffering. We all are.
yeah.
And it's like the mind that awakens to this and goes, oh, wait a minute. There's something else here. You know, there's some other way where I want to learn about compassion, love, wisdom, things like that. The virtuous actions, you know. I mean, this mind awakens that everybody is under the guise of ignorance. They're under the veil of ignorance. Even the president is ignorant. The president of every country is ignorant. They have no idea. They haven't looked in here at all. This is just how it is. I'm not saying they're bad people, but there's very, very difficult to find an enlightened being in this world. I mean, you have to go out and look for one deeply. You know, unfortunately, we have with us His Holiness the Dalai Lama. If you can see him for 1 second, or just being near His Holiness's mind from his photo, it'll transform your life. Just to be in his presence is worth 100 years of prayers. Every day, 24 hours a day, just to be in His Holiness's presence for 1 second is 100 years of prayers and penance. It's worth that. Because he's like the Buddha. And the imprints are so strong from being in his presence, it'll transform our lives, just to be near His Holiness. This is my own experience. I just, you know, I'm only speaking from my own experience.
Losong, if we consist of all these pieces, so how can we identify ourselves? How we control all these pieces? Because it's beyond our control. So you can't even control yourself.
Spaces or species?
Pieces.
Spaces?
No, pieces.
Pieces.
Yes.
Okay, so wisdom isn't necessarily the piece. Wisdom mind is not one of the pieces. The wisdom mind is the one that is examining. So eventually you get down to where you're separate from all the pieces. Now that's the wisdom mind. There's this lack of any real existence, or they call it inherent existence, which means there's no independent phenomena. Once you recognize that, you become that mind. The mind that recognizes that all phenomena have no independent existence. Like Olga is her hair, her makeup, her stomach, her heart, her skin, her house, her friends, her job. You know, this all goes, when you say Olga, all this thing just arrives here. Oh, I'm Olga. Then all that arrives here, right?
Right.
But if you can separate from all that, then there's still awareness and clarity. There's immense clarity and awareness arises. So then you can be that. And you can impute the I on that, not on these conditions around you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but this takes a lot of practice. It isn't done in one moment. You have to, like during the day, kind of examine it from time to time. Usually the best time to examine it when we're upset or angry or something has happened. Then stepping back and say, wait, is that me? What's the cause of that? What are the events that are happening? Is any of those me? Which part of it is me? So you have to examine it very closely, check on it, to see who's running the show, who's the director, who's the projector, who's running the movie. You know, we have to step back and examine that. Anything else? So there's a lot in here. Usually I collect these, I don't let them out. You know, if you want one, then I ask you to think about this little thing I read in the beginning about how to keep them in a high, clean place, not to keep them on the floor, don't pile magazines on top of them. I go to some people's houses, there's the Buddhist teachings, and all the magazines are all over them. And I go, that person is not going to meet the Buddhist teachings in a future life. It's already making obstacles for that person, they don't even realize it. They're covering up the Buddhist teachings, which are liberating, with worldly conditions. So they're making more obstacles just by pieces of paper. So see, I keep mine in little cloth binders all the time, or in trunks, or in wrapped in trunks or in briefcases. So if you go into Buddhist temples, above the altar you can see all the scriptures there. Above all the Buddhas, the statues of all the Buddhas, who are representations. You know, the wisdom beings are made of light, so we can invite them into any statue. Like if this statue were blessed, the Buddha would actually be in the statue, because the wisdom beings are made of light. We can invite them into the objects. Of course, we recognize, oh, this is an object representing the Buddha, but the wisdom beings can be there too if the proper invitations are done. So it's just something to think about, you know, that the wisdom beings don't necessarily require a form, but they can be in a form also. Like when you go to see a High Lama, he'll give you a little cord sometime like this. A little red cord here, see? So usually there's 3 knots in the cord somewhere. Maybe not on this one. There's 3 knots. The Lama has blessed us and breathed on it. With his body speech, his purity of his body, speech, mind. He's put many little Buddhas in these knots made of light. So he's actually giving you this to protect your mind from your own negative minds. Nobody can hurt us unless we made the cause. If we haven't made the cause and the whole war comes, they can't hurt us. Impossible if we haven't made the cause. So this helps, you know, these